How one conversation changed everything. Have you ever wondered if you were that one in a million? The stranger who just happened to be in the right place at the right time? The one who unknowingly altered the course of someone else's life? I never thought I'd have that story, but I do. I was 22, standing alone on a nearly deserted train platform just before midnight. I'd missed the last bus home. The air was icy, maybe 20 degrees, and I was shivering in my coat, wishing I was anywhere else. That's when I noticed him. He stood about 30 feet away, pacing near the edge of the platform. No jacket, just a thin sweater and worn-out jeans, like the cold couldn't touch him. His hands moved restlessly, and every so often, he leaned forward to peer down the dark tunnel, muttering words I couldn't make out. At first, I tried to ignore him, but something about the way he moved, the way he stared down those tracks, sent a knot into my stomach. It clicked. He wasn't waiting for a train to get home. He was waiting for a train for a much darker reason. I froze. My mind raced with questions. Do I walk away? Do I call someone? Do I approach him? What if I say the wrong thing? But the thought of standing by and doing nothing felt worse than saying something awkward. So I took a breath, forced myself to act casual, and walked over. Hey man, I said lightly. Do you know when the next train comes? I missed the last bus, and I'm kinda lost. He didn't really look at me, just shrugged, eyes locked on the tracks. His hands shook, and it wasn't from the cold. My chest tightened, so I kept talking. Small stuff. Shoes. Weather. Asking if he'd been waiting long. Anything to pull him away from whatever thoughts were eating at him. Finally, I blurted. It's freezing out here. Want to grab some coffee across the street? My treat. That's when he turned his head and really looked at me. His eyes were empty, hollow, like he'd already decided nothing mattered anymore. But after a long pause, he gave the smallest nod, as if he had nothing left to lose. We walked together to a rundown 24-hour diner. The place smelled like burnt coffee and old grease, but it was warm. I bought us coffee and a couple stale donuts. We sat in a cracked vinyl booth by the window, and for the first time, he spoke. His name was Kevin. That week had destroyed him. He'd lost his job on Monday, a job he'd held for 8 years. On Wednesday, his wife left, taking their child with her to another state. By Friday, divorce papers had landed on his doorstep. In just 5 days, everything he had built, his family, his career, his future, collapsed. He said he'd spent all day in his empty apartment, wondering if anyone would even notice if he disappeared. His parents lived across the country, barely in touch. His friends were all co-workers who probably wouldn't remember him a month after he was gone. And the train tracks, he admitted, felt like the only way to silence the pain. I didn't give advice. I didn't try to fix it. I just listened. For 3 hours, he poured everything out. His anger, his heartbreak, his fear. And when the sky began to lighten outside the diner windows, I slid a napkin across the table with my number scrawled on it. Look, I said, I don't know you. But if you ever need someone to talk to, no matter what time it is, even 3 a.m., call me. No questions asked. He stared at the napkin like it was a foreign object, then slipped it into his wallet. We parted ways as the city was waking up, and I honestly didn't know if I'd ever hear from him again. 2 weeks later, at 2 a.m., my phone rang. It was Kevin. He said he was having a rough night, remembered my words, and decided to call. That first hour-long conversation turned into several more over the following months. Slowly, his calls became less desperate, and I began to hear hope in his voice again. He found a new job, started therapy. Little by little, he rebuilt. 3 years later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was a wedding invitation. Kevin was marrying someone he'd met in a grief support group. Tucked into the envelope was a handwritten note. You saved my life that night at the train station. Now I get to marry the love of my life because you didn't walk away. Thank you for proving that strangers can care. I went to his wedding, and standing there, watching him smile at the altar, I realized something. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness, a conversation, a cup of coffee, a napkin with a phone number, can rewrite someone's entire story.